Last week, I introduced this TypeScript implementation of the A2A x402 library that was introduced by Google and Python. But this implementation is essentially just a fork or a copy of that in TypeScript. And what it really does is it allows you to build AI agents that handle payments. So you can request, verify, and settle crypto payments using the exception-based x402 protocol. And in this video, I want to show you how to easily build and deploy an agent into EigenCompute on EigenCloud. Now, why would you even use EigenCompute? Well, EigenCompute allows you to deploy apps which generate proof of exactly what code has been executed. So users can verify your app's behavior cryptographically, not just by trusting the developer or the company. So you have smart contract-like guarantees, transparency and verifiability, but with the programmability and performance of Web2 infrastructure. And the way it works is that you containerize your app with Docker, and EigenCompute runs it in secure enclaves called TEEs that generate these proofs. If you want to learn more about EigenCompute, go to our docs at docs.eigencloud.xyz, where you can see everything that you might want to know about it, as well as a technical comparison between EigenCompute, smart contracts, and traditional apps with different information about things like the trust model, data privacy, languages that you can use, and external APIs. To get started, I'm going to go to the A2A x402 TypeScript library and GitHub. And there are a couple of ways that you can use this. If you already have an agent, you can just npm install the SDK and implement it with your agent. But if you want to, you can also fork or download this entire library. And we have a merchant and client agent demo kind of built out so you can just run that. And this is going to be what we're going to do. We're going to run the merchant agent in EigenCompute, and then we're going to run the client agent locally and interact with our deployed merchant agent. And when we deploy it to EigenCompute, we're going to be given an HTTP endpoint that we can then just interact with, and anyone in the world can then also interact with it as well. So I'll go ahead and clone the repo locally. And once it's been cloned, you can see that we have a client agent and merchant agent folder, as well as the x402 library itself. So I'll go ahead and open this up in my text editor. And the first couple of things that we're going to want to do are going to be to set up our environment variables on both the client and the merchant. So the client is the person that's interacting with the agent that's going to be paying for things, and the merchant is going to be the seller receiving the payments. So the client agent has a wallet private key that will be sending payments, and the merchant has a wallet that will be receiving payments. There are a couple of different API keys that you need to set. You're going to be setting your Google API key for Gemini. You're going to be setting your wallet address, and as well as maybe like a base Sepolia endpoint that you'd like to use. So I'm obviously not going to be setting any of those environment variables on this video live. But the one thing I might set and kind of talk about a little bit is going to be this merchant agent URL. Because once we deploy this to EigenCompute, EigenCompute is going to give us a URL that we can then use, and then it's going to be exposed on port 10,000. So if we run this locally, it'll be localhost, but once we deploy this to EigenCompute, we'll be given a URL that we can use. So the other repo that we're going to go ahead and take a look at is EigenX. And EigenX is the CLI for building with EigenCompute. And if you don't already have this installed, everything you need to know about installing it is right here. And there's a quick installation that just allows you to run this one curl command, and you'll be all set up. And you may, depending on when you watch this video, need to also get set up with a whitelist. So you might need to fill out our form. It would be like right here to be onboarded. And once you're onboarded and whitelisted, you can deploy. And you can actually still run all of this demo locally though if you're not whitelisted. So you can kind of run this locally, you can install EigenX and everything like that. You just won't be able to deploy it live. So with that being said, once you've installed EigenX, you should have this EigenX binary. And we're going to be running EigenX app as the main command we're going to be running. And I'm going to basically be running EigenX app deploy because I'm going to already have my app already locally. So all you really need to deploy anything in EigenCompute is a Dockerized application. So if you have an application already built, you can literally just deploy it on EigenX or EigenCompute using EigenX by just Dockerizing it. All right, so I'll go ahead and open up, I'll go ahead and split this up into a few windows. On the bottom, we're going to change into the client agent. And on the top, we're going to go ahead and change into the merchant agent. And on the client agent, I'm going to run npm install. And on the merchant agent, for now, I'm just going to run, I'm going to copy the environment variable example. And I'm also going to do that for the client. And I will go ahead and set my environment variables off screen, and then I will be right back. Okay, so I should have now, with my environment variables being set, I should be able to go ahead and test some of this stuff out locally. So I'm going to run docker build, and I'm going to say, I'm going to target the merchant agent and the merchant agent folder. And then I should be able to run docker run, setting the port as 10,000 and tagging the environment variable file. And now we should have this server running at localhost 10,000. And I should be able to say curl and check the health. And if that comes back, then everything is working properly, meaning we can probably go ahead and just deploy this to EigenCompute using EigenX. So now that we have tested our local version of this, I'll go ahead and run EigenX app deploy. And this is going to walk us through everything that we need to do to deploy this. So I'm going to go ahead and choose build and deploy from a Docker file. I'm going to say natter / EigenX agent demo 1. And natter is my Docker username. And I will choose yes for the logs, only viewable by me. And then in a moment, we'll be able to basically check the logs of our running application. Next, we're going to get this prompt, just making sure all of our information is correct. And you will just check that. And if it's correct, you can just say yes. And with that, we can see that the status is currently deploying. And if we want to check the status in the future, we can run EigenX app info. And what we might want to look at on the first deployment is going to be the IP address, because once we have this IP address assigned, we can basically test out the endpoint by curling and checking the health of the endpoint at the port that we're at. So I will give this a couple of seconds, and then I'll check this in just a moment. So if we run EigenX app info, we can choose the app. And then we can now see the status is running and we have an IP address assigned. And down here, I can run EigenX app logs. And we can see that our server is ready to go. So what I'll do now is curl our endpoint. And we see that our server is running live on EigenCompute. So we can now run our client to interact with that. And what we're going to need to do now is take this endpoint and replace this in our environment variable before we run the client. This is going to be on the client code, by the way. So we're going to go to client agent, and we're going to go to our .env file, and we're going to set the merchant agent URL to whatever IP address we were given, with the port of 10,000. All right, so now that my environment variable has been updated with the proper endpoint, I can run the client locally, and we could see if this works. So I'm gonna go back to, okay, we're in the client folder, which is good. I'm gonna go ahead and run npm run web, and this will open the web application of the agent so we can have a web interface. And I will go ahead and go to localhost 3000. And here I will just first start off with like hello world. The agent responds with some helpful information. And by default, this merchant agent is very, very basic. All it does is sells you arbitrary items for 1 USDC. But with everything already set up, you can easily configure this to sell whatever you would like for any amount that you would like. So I'm going to go ahead and just type in, I want to buy a banana. And now you're seeing that the merchant is requesting 1 USDC. I'll just go ahead and type yes. And we can see that the payment is successful. And if we run over here, EigenX app logs, we can see that there is some logging for all of the things that have gone on so far that we can kind of view. And if we go to Sepolia base scan and we check out the address of our merchant or client agent, we should see that there was a USDC transfer of 1 USDC just recently. Now, back in our terminal, we can run EigenX app, and we can see that there are other commands that we can run. So if we'd like to upgrade or change something about our application, we can just change that locally, and we can run EigenX app upgrade. We can run EigenX app stop or terminate to, obviously stop or delete the application. And you can run EigenX app list to see all the applications that you have running in EigenCompute. And that's it. That wraps this up. Hopefully that was very helpful. I would love to see, all the different types of things that people are going to build here. If you have something interesting, you can always tag me, Dabbit3, or EigenCloud at EigenLayer on Twitter, and we will try to give you a shout out. Thanks for checking this out.